Hi, you're watching Hindustan Times and I'm Aditi Prasad and you are on the show HT Insight, and with me is the paper's editor-in-chief Sukumar Ranganathan. Of course, a lot is happening in Maharashtra. There is the Uddhav Sena and there is the Eknath Shinde Sena, and some say that I have these many numbers. The other side says, oh no, that's not true. Prove your metal on the floor of the house. But nothing seems to be moving for the last couple of days. So let's try and make some sense out of what is happening in Maharashtra, and also understand from Sukumar whether the Shiv Sena as we knew it or as we understood it, does it still exist anymore or not? Sukumar, my first question to you, what is happening? Which side are the numbers piled up, and why isn't the other side making a move if they have the numbers?
The best way of looking at the situation is to look at it from the end. So, I'm going to start from there because it's easier to explain what's going to happen in the end. The process is going to be very messy. Your guess is as good as mine. This is going to end up before the courts.
Okay.
Right? And it's going to end up before the courts for a variety of reasons. Or let me put it another way, no reason is going to be insignificant enough to go before the court. So you know that there is a proposal for the disqualification of 12 plus 4 legislators. They first asked for 12, then they asked for 4 more. Who has? The Uddhav Thackeray camp asked for the disqualification of 12 plus 4 people from the Shinde camp. This is before the speaker. He's an acting speaker, not even a pro-term speaker. The legality of whether an acting speaker can disqualify people will definitely be challenged if this person goes ahead. So, everything is going to be challenged from now on. This will end up before the courts. It's going to be a long, messy battle, perhaps. They could kiss and make up, but I don't know whether that's going to happen or whether too much has happened.
It's happening. Yeah. There's too much water.
So that's one thing that's going to happen. The second thing that's going to happen is, as things stand, and it looks like the numbers are holding up, even though they will eventually have to hold up before court and on the floor of the house and everything else. Because, the important thing is what's happening in Guwahati doesn't matter. Eventually, what's happening on the floor of the house is what's going to matter. And from the numbers, it looks clear that the MVA is over. It may take some time, right? I mean, it's not going to be an instant culmination or an instant resolution, but eventually it's over. So those two things you can take for granted. This is going to end up before the courts, and the MVA is over, which means this government doesn't look tenable anymore.
Okay, so we know the end right now. Of course, you're saying that there's a messy, we don't know what is going to happen, but this is how it's going to end up, and I think that's a very interesting insight. So, Kumar, I just want to come to you about the second thing that I talked about in my intro. Is this the end of the Shiv Sena as we knew it? In any case, once they decided to tie up with a ideologically very different Congress and NCP, that was sort of like a hammer to what Shiv Sena had sort of stood for all these years. And do you think that was the beginning of the end and we are seeing the end now? Or do you see Shiv Sena in its present form or in some form? How do you think that's going to play out?
I'm going to give you my theory, right? So you can feel free to agree with it or disagree with it. I think either way, whichever way you look at it, the answer to your question is yes. I think this is pretty much the end of the Sena as we knew it, and for a variety of reasons. One, if you are an ally of the BJP, as history has shown, as analysis has shown, and we have a very nice analysis on our website right now, it's also in the paper, which looks at how anyone who partners with the BJP grows stronger at their expense. And that is exactly what was happening in Maharashtra with the Sena. They were once the senior partner of the alliance, they became a junior partner. And so the reason why the Sena wanted the chief minister's post, the reason why they broke a pre-poll alliance, all of this has its genesis in the fact that they saw themselves losing ground to the BJP in the state. So they broke away. But what did they do when they broke away? They went and tied up with parties with whom they share nothing in common, right? I mean, there is no ideology at all that is there in common, and the Sena ideology at the end of the day is a pretty strong ideology. we may not agree with it, because at the end of the day, it was a very militant brand of Hindutva that they were famous for. I mean, it's the party that all of us know, I mean, which is famous for digging up pitches, right? And for beating up people who are not Maharashtrians. Let's not beat around the bush. That is what this party is famous for. And that's how they built their name. And for that to suddenly try and acquire a softer image, or at least curb these tendencies because of its partnership. And we are now hearing reports of how there were people from the Sena who were told, don't celebrate the Ayodhya verdict, don't go there, don't do this. So clearly there was a clash of within, right? I mean, so now you have to choose. And the unfortunate thing is, I think they're now having to choose between the alliance, which is the government, and the party. I think they've lost both. What could happen now, to come back to your original question, if they split? You have the Uddhav camp, and then you have the other camp. Now, depending on how the court proceedings go, even if they have enough number to split the party, they will have to merge with the BJP, because the anti-defection law has got two criteria. You have to split and you have to merge. Now, the Shinde camp can very well say that, oh, we are not splitting, we are the Shiv Sena, the other one is splitting, but then the other one will have to merge with someone. So, you know, either way, you're going to see a Sena which is very different from the Sena of old. The Shinde camp will definitely have to play second fiddle to the BJP. I mean, that's the elephant in the room. No one is talking about it now. It's not as if Shinde is going to become the chief minister. I think at the end of the day, if the numbers that we are seeing right now, and we've been tabulating the numbers by the minute, so I think they are reasonably accurate. So and they show that 38 of the Shiv Sena MLAs out of 55 are with Shinde.
Right.
So 38 on the Shinde side, 17 on the other side, 55. They used to have 56, but one gentleman died. So it's very, very clear that the majority is on the other side. But it's also equally clear that these guys are going to be playing second fiddle to the BJP. The BJP is going to have the chief minister's post if they go ahead with this. And of course, there are other possibilities. They could be president's rule, they could be fresh elections, but I don't think all of those, I don't think all of those are as likely as what we just discussed, which is a BJP chief minister.
And I can't help but talk about the fact that there is the Eknath Shinde Sena and there is the Uddhav Thackeray Sena, and the real Shiv Sena is really...
there is no Shiv Sena after this.
There is
I mean, that's how it's going to be, right? I mean, because I think you've pretty much cleaved this party down the middle. And I'm told that this cleavage also exists with the MPs, with the parliamentarians, right?
Not
I mean,
just
the Lok Sabha and the... I think between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, they have 22, if I'm not...
22, if...
Right?
Yeah.
And again, I'm told that the majority there is again with Shinde, but of course, none of them has really come out and spoken in the open. So this is a battle which is also going to be fought in the Election Commission, because the fight before the courts is going to be about the legality of the speaker to do this, which is the splinter group and which is not the splinter group. The Election Commission will have to decide who gets to retain the symbol, which means who is the real Shiv Sena. So there are going to be two fora where this fight is going to happen: Election Commission, courts.
Election Commission and courts, but also the man, Uddhav Thackeray. Let's just talk about him for a moment. You know, it's almost as if, and some would say, I'm sure he had his compulsions, and as you pointed out, losing relevance with with the big brother, aligning with the big brother BJP, and therefore losing your own sheen. But Uddhav Thackeray, some say that because of his own personal ambition to become chief minister, the party has come to such a knot. I mean, there are now stories being told about how he was not even accessible to his MLAs. He refused to meet with them or refused to listen to their grouse, listen to their problems. In that sense of the word, let's talk about Uddhav Thackeray a bit and talk about his role, finally what his father started, seeing the end of that Sena, Shiv Sena, his role in this entire
There are two aspects to this. The first aspect, and there's been some bit said about this, is his ill health. Over the last year, he's not been particularly well. And I think his isolation and his detachment was largely on function of this. The unfortunate thing is it also gave the perception to the man on the street, and you could speak to anyone in Mumbai, that it was the NCP which was effectively running the government, which is not a great message to send out. It obviously also offended a lot of the other Shiv Sainiks, including people like Shinde, right? I mean, who suddenly seeing that the NCP is pretty much calling the shots, or the perception is that the NCP is calling the shots. So that's one thing that happened, and that was an affection on account of his ill health. The second aspect is what seems to be an effort to tone down the Sena's rhetoric, very radical rhetoric, and make it seem to be a liberal party with what can I say? I mean, I can't find a better word than woke. You know, and you know, that was the impression that this party seemed to be giving. The whole Yuva Sena that came up, right? I mean, Aditya Thackeray and all the things that they were trying to do with culture and art and environment and everything else, and some of these are good causes. But did it really add to his image? And did it really add to his image in a way that is significant enough to win elections, or to, you know, make him popular with key leaders in his own party? There is a theory, of course, that it is only the legislators and the office bearers of the Shiv Sena who are unhappy with Thackeray, and that the man on the street, the Sainik on the street, is not. That the Thackeray name still carries some pull for them. I'm not so sure, because I think what you're seeing is disaffection, which is sure, the legislators are the ones who are expressing it, but I also think some of it is coming to them from people below them. I could be wrong, but that's the sense that I get. So you're seeing a leader who perhaps tried to change his party's image. It could be coalition compulsions that forced him to do it, but that's one thing. And COVID and other assorted issues kept him removed from what was really happening, and didn't help.
All right, let me just wind up this, and you know, one question I can't but help but ask: the end of the Shiv Sena, as you've called it, as we knew it, of course. But did this really start with the death of with the death of Bal Thackeray? You know, there was even that legacy war between Raj and Uddhav at that time, and many felt that Raj was more of a force to take on that legacy of Balasaheb rather than Uddhav. But then eventually, of course, Uddhav became who he was and rose to power within the Shiv Sena. But do you believe that this story has the end of the Shiv Sena? The story has its origins somewhere with the death of Bal Thackeray.
I see, like we've said, end of the Sena as we know it. It's not as if, you know, it's going to cease to exist,
yeah.
Right? It's just that they're facing this big. They've had other issues in the past when popular leaders have left, but I don't think the scale has ever been as significant as it is now, right? I mean, you're literally having almost 70% of the party or 80% of the party saying, of the legislators saying, right, we don't want to be with you. We want other things, right? And I don't think it's because, I don't think the genesis is back then. I think the genesis is very simple. I think this genesis is in 2019. This genesis is when the Shiv Sena forged an alliance which is an unnatural one. You can't forge an unnatural alliance, it is not going to last. I mean, from that perspective, it's a lesson for everyone who's trying to say that, oh, we are all against the BJP, so let's get together. May work in the very short term, but eventually the differences will just come to the fore. You look at the Rajya Sabha elections, the BJP won one seat more than it should have in Maharashtra. Same thing happened in the Legislative Council election. The NCP, which is part of the alliance, got 4 more seats, 4 more votes, not seats, but 4 more votes than it should have. They would have probably been better served had they gone to other people in the alliance. So it's very messed up. It's not going to work. And I think the genesis is in 2019. I don't think it makes sense to go back in time and say the genesis was after Bal Thackeray died and everything happened. I think the genesis was in 2019 when the Sena, for very good reasons, like I've said, because had they not broken with the BJP, they would have probably become a junior partner, much like the JDU has in Bihar, right? I mean, at one point in time, the JDU was the senior partner, but now the JDU is clearly the junior partner. I don't think the Chief Minister of Bihar is very happy at that prospect, but he has to accept it. The BJP is the bigger party, and I think the BJP is the stronger party, and the next elections that happen, I think the BJP will again get more seats than the JDU. That's how it's going to work, maybe the Shiv Sena wasn't ready for that, so Uddhav did what he had to do, which he thought was the right thing from his party's perspective. But it resulted in the creation of an unnatural alliance, and I think that
was the genesis of this entire
thing.
So, right, thanks so much, Sukumar. So clearly a lesson for all political parties, as Sukumar is pointing out, a lesson for all parties out there who are trying to come together right now. Don't try and make unnatural alliances, because as we've seen with the Shiv Sena example, they're really not panning out, or will not pan out. I mean, of course, they just might work, but more often than not, this sort of an unnatural alliance is what is what is seeing Shiv Sena in the mess that it is in right now. And the Shiv Sena as we knew it, of course, as Sukumar also pointed out, does not or will not exist in the manner in which we knew it after this entire fiasco. Thanks so much for watching this broadcast. Stay tuned and keep sending us questions. We will come back to you next week with the hot button topic of that week.